All right, Shabbos, good morning, everyone. A good Chodesh. Let's begin brand new parak. In Meretz Hashem, I want to begin by thanking our sponsors. First of all, by thanking our Talmud Torah sponsors for Chodesh Menachem Av, Avram and Shendi Kelman, for dedicating all the Shurim and Drushes this month, with the hope that this Tisha B'Av will be a Chag, a Yom Tov filled with joy and the eternal Beis HaMikdash. The week of learning sponsor, Ira and Miriam Grossman, in honor of the yahrzeit of Ira's mother, Freda Bas Shmuel. Avron and Gali Elbaum, in commemoration of the 37th yahrzeit of Avron's grandmother, Rose Lerner Rezel Bas Chanoch, and in the merit of a refuah shlema for Sarah Bas Rezel and Shraga Moshe Ben Fega. We hope that in the merit of our Talmud Torah, all the neshamas will have an aliyah, families in Nechama, and those who require a refuah should have one together with Kol Cholei Yisrael. And both say with that, let us begin. So brand new parak. Today's daf is Kuf Lamed Ches. We have a lot to do today. We're actually beginning from Kuf Lamed Zayin Amud Beis 137b, and we are picking up at the Mishnah. So remember again, so a little bit of a different topic now. Actually, really quite fascinating, as you'll see in just a moment. Rabbi Eliezer says as follows: Tovenes hamishmeres b'yamtiv v'nostin letliya b'Shabbos. You can go ahead. We'll use this following translation. You could set up a strainer on Shabbos, and you could pour into the. You could set up a strainer on Yom Tiv, and you could pour into the strainer on Shabbos. Now, what is this referring to? Look at Rashi for just a moment. Tolenas hamishmeres shemisanin ba shmari yayin umosach pia lechol sad beigul v'naase keohel al chalal hakli. So here's what you're doing. Imagine for a moment you have a strainer that's like a net. It's like a net. You're hanging the strainer into the barrel, and you're going ahead and pouring the wine into it. So there's two things that are happening over here. Number one is that what you're doing is, if you can imagine, you're pulling the side of the netting and putting it over the side of the barrel. So effectively, you are creating, according to Rashi, an ohel. You are creating like a structure, a rooftop structure for the interior of the barrel. That's Aleph. So we have the creation of an ohel. That's number one. And number two, what we have over here is the act of pouring something through a strainer. Now again, what these issues are going to be, in Meretz Hashem, we will see in the Gemara. But those are the two issues that Rashi points out. Number one, the creation of an ohel. So again, just to understand where the ohel is over here. The ohel, the interior of the ohel, or the inside of the ohel, is the interior of the kli. The roof of the ohel would actually be the strainer. So Rabbi Eliezer says, you can go ahead and put the strainer into the barrel on Yom Tiv, but you can go ahead and pour wine into it on Shabbos. The Chachamim say, so if you look at actually, let's just finish the Rashi. Rashi says over here, and even though you're creating an ohel, apparently according to Rabbi Eliezer, the creation of an ohel on Yom Tiv is permitted. Aval b'Shabbos misla lechatchila lo, but the creation of an ohel on Shabbos would be something that we would not want to do. Avalim tluyehi nostin l'socha shmarim u'mesani de'in derech bora b'kach. So therefore, I will say halacha l'maisa. What the Gemara says is as follows. The Gemara, according to Rabbi Eliezer, on Yom Tiv, you are lechatchila permitted to make this kind of ohel, and of course pour the wine into it as well. On Shabbos, you can't make the ohel, but what you can do is go ahead and pour wine into it. Good. The Chacham say in Tolenas hamishmeres b'Yom Tiv, they nostin letluya b'Shabbos. So the Chachamim say no, you cannot go ahead and put the strainer on this barrel on Yom Tiv, nor can you pour into a suspended strainer on Shabbos. Aval nostin letluya b'Yom Tiv, but you can halacha l'maisa pour wine into a strainer on Yom Tiv that has already been set up before Yom Tiv. So we'll say, here is our machlokes. Says the Gemara, hashtar. So we'll say, so this is very exciting. This is very exciting because the truth is, we've never really had a discussion about the concept of creating an ohel before, right? That's we've never done before. So this is something a little bit new within our Masechta. So let's go. Says the Gemara, hashta, Rabbi Eliezer asufe ohel aray lo mosvinon leme'aver lechatchila shari. I will say, now the truth is not totally true. We did have a discussion about ohel before when it came, remember again, to the pekak kacholon, the putting in of the shutters into the structure. So remember again, Rabbi Eliezer said that you're not even allowed to add on to an impermanent structure on Shabbos. Would he actually allow you to create something new on Shabbos? So the Gemara says, I'm sorry, or on Yom Tov I should say, Mahi, what's the case? Where do we see that Rabbi Eliezer does not allow you to add on to a temporary structure on Shabbos? Disnan, pikaka chalon, if you have a window shutter, Rabbi Eliezer, and bisman shekasher v'tali pokikin bor. We have this, Rabbi Eliezer says, if the shutter is tied to the structure and suspended, then you could put it back. Ve'imlav in pokikin bo, but if not, you can't put it back. The Chum say benkach u benkach pokikin bo. The Chum say either way, you're permitted to go ahead and put it back. So as you see, Rabbi Eliezer holds that you're not even really allowed to add on in an impermanent fashion, right? You can't add on anything. So he says the only way to go ahead and re-shutter the window is mamish if it's attached and suspended. To which the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Komodim shein osin ohel arai betchila b'yamtiv ve'in tzarich lomer b'Shabbos. And Rabbi Bar Chana says everyone agrees that you cannot make a temporary structure on Yamtiv, and it goes without saying you can't do it on Shabbos. Lo nechluku ela lahosif. The machlokes is, can you add on to a temporary structure on Yom Tiv? Rabbi Eliezer omer ein masifin b'Yom Tiv, bein tzarich lomer b'Shabbos. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't add on Yom Tiv, so not on Shabbos. V'chama mosifin b'Shabbos, bein tzarich lomer b'Yom Tiv. And the Chum say you can add on Shabbos and certainly Yom Tiv. So both say, so what's going on over here? So Rabbi Eliezer seems to be on record as saying you cannot add on even to a temporary structure on Yom Tiv. And yet, halacha l'maisa, the Mishnah seems to be indicating that Rabbi Eliezer allows for the creation of an actual ohel harai, a temporary structure on Yom Tov itself. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer savar like Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer holds like Rabbi Yehuda. The Sanya in ben Yom Tov l'Shabbos ela ochal nefesh bilvad. The Brisa says, in general, there is no distinction between Yom Tov and Shabbos except ochal nefesh, the ability to engage in melacha for the sake of food preparation. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda machshir af machshir ochal nefesh. And Rabbi Yehuda allows even for preparatory acts. Rabbi say machshirin. So it says, remember again, according to that, Rabbi Yehuda would hold that you absolutely can go ahead and set up the strainer on Yom Tiv, even though again you are creating an ohel harai, a temporary structure. Why? Because l'maisa at the end of the day, this is machshiri ochal nefesh. Remember, both say, to be clear, why are you setting up this ohel harai? Let's understand. Why are you doing this? Why are you setting up the ohel harai? That's being done in order to go ahead and filter out the wine. You want to get out the dregs in order to be able to drink the wine. That's machshiri ochel nefesh. So halacha l'maisa again. So Rabbi Yehuda holds that you could do machshirin. If that's the case, then halacha l'maisa, even though it creates an ohel harai, it's okay. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Yehuda b'machshirin she'ef shel asos me'erav Yom Tiv. B'machshirin she'ef shel asos me'Yom Tiv mishamis. They will say that's fine. But even Rabbi Eliezer, who allows for the performance of machshirin, he allows for the performance of machshirin which could not have been done the day before on Erev Yom Tiv. But any machshirin which can be done before Yom Tiv certainly again should be done before Yom Tiv. If that's the case, I will say there is no qualitative difference if you set up the strainer on Erev Yom Tiv or on Yom Tiv itself. If that's the case, you have to do it on Erev Yom Tiv. To which the Gemara says, Rabbi Eliezer adifim with Rabbi Yehuda. Apparently, Rabbi Eliezer is even more permissive than Rabbi Yehuda. Therefore, I will say it turns out that the way to understand the Mishnah is as follows: Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that you are permitted to go ahead and put up the wine strainer on Yom Tiv, even though halacha l'maisa, you are effectively creating an ohel harai, a temporary structure, is not really because Rabbi Eliezer allows the creation of a temporary structure on Yom Tiv, but rather it's because Rabbi Eliezer allows machshirei ochel nefesh on Yom Tiv. Not only that, he allows machshirei ochel nefesh even for machshirin, which could have been done before Yom Tiv. A pretty dramatic shita. The Chacham, on the other hand, say no, you cannot go ahead and put up the strainer on Yom Tiv. And not only that, but and you can't pour anything into a strainer on Shabbos, but you could pour something into a strainer on Yom Tiv if the strainer was set up on Erev Yom Tiv. Ibaylahu, Tala Mai. So what happens if the strainer was already put up? Amr Yosef, Tala Chayiv Chatos. Well, both I saw again. If it was already put up, right? If you put it up, what's the halacha? So Yosef says if you put up the strainer on the barrel, you're Chayiv Chatos. Amr Abai Elamiata. Tala kuza besichsa hachanami mechayiv. Are you going to tell me then that if you hang a jug on a peg, that you would also be chayiv? That you would also be chayiv? Top of Kuf Lamed Ches. Ela Amra Abaye midrabanan hi shelo yaseh kederach shu osa b'chol. So rather Abaye says, you're right. At the end of the day, the reason why the Chachamim in the Mishnah prohibit you to go ahead and put up the strainer, both on Yom Tiv as well as on Shabbos, is that halacha lamaisa is an isser midrabanan. It's isser midrabanan. Look at Rashi. Ava Amar Abaye midrabanan. Tap Rashi Kuf Lamed Ches. Ka'asrilu Chachamim demasnisin delo shavkinalei lemisla leme'avid uvda dechol. So we'll say this is very interesting. So Abaye says, in reality, this is not like real, remember again, now actual creation of an ohel could be an isser da'araisa of bona, of building. Sabai is saying, what's happening over here is not an isser da'araisa. There's no real isser da'araisa involved over here. Rather, again, this is an isser da'rabanan of the dechol. Apparently, the creation of an ohel arai, the creation of a temporary roof, the creation of temporary structure, according to Abai, will be an issue of uvda dechol. But also, uvda dechol is a fascinating category of, it's like kind of like a catch-all category of things that may not be biblically or even really rabbinically prohibited, but resemble weekday activity. So because they resemble weekday activity, therefore they should not be done on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Mankit Abaye chumri masnisa v'tani. So Abaye used to collect chumras from different brises, and he compiled them together. So we'll say, here are some of the chumras. Hagud v'hamishmeres, kila v'kise, kise galin, lo yasa. So we'll say, listen to these cases. Good. Now Rashi says over here, good. Who are shal behema tavor upiv rachav maod v'yishlo shinotzim va'ovri drachim emalin osen yayin ochala b'makom shetokin shama aleim lalun v'shotchin oso upiv masuach agabe yisedos v'ruach overes. We're supposed to listen to this. So this essentially is a wineskin. That halacha l'maisa was very wide on top. So what you would do is, when you would go out and camp for the night, you wouldn't just put the wineskin down. Instead, what you would do is you would put pegs in and you would spread the wineskin out. Now, the reason you do that is so the air should travel through the wineskin so that the wine should not spoil. So that's the good. Mishmeres is a strainer like we've seen before. Kila, Rashi says, sheyesh begagot tefach, is a canopy. Is a canopy, like a bed canopy. But I will say, but canopies are only going to be problematic, we're going to see, is if at least there's a flat area on top that is at least a tefach. Again, we'll get into this in just a moment. Kisei galin. Rashi says, Kimomita galalanisa, the kiravahu shem makom, umefarkin mitosein the kis osan, vitonin osan iman, v'chozun umechazon. So apparently, again, this kisei galin was a type of chair that was made up of different parts. So when you were no longer using it, you would disassemble it, go to your next location, and then reassemble it there. So in all of these cases, Abaye said, Lo yasa, you should not go ahead and erect these items on Shabbos. Why? Because halacha l'maisa, they have the status of an ohel arai. Each of these items have the status of a temporary structure, right? The wineskin, because it's spread out like a roof. The mishmeres, the strainer, because it covers the interior of the barrel. The kila, the canopy, because again, if you have a canopy with a flat part on top that is at least a tefach, that in fact is a roof. And the kisei galin, because ultimately, again, you're assembling and disassembling it. However, v'im asa, but if you did so, pater aval asar. So we'll say again, the halacha concerning these items is only dirabbanon. So if you did go ahead, in fact, and do it, it is pater aval asar. However, ole keva, a real tent, lo yasa. So we'll say any formal structure you should not create on Shabbos. V'im asa chayiv chatos. And if in fact you did so, if you went ahead and you constructed an ohel keva, which means a real structure, real ohel, you're going to be chayiv chatos. It's an iser da'oraisa. Aval mita v'kisei traskel v'asla mutar l'ntos l'chatchila. People say a regular bed, or a regular chair, a basket. So actually, take a look at Rashi. Aval mita shalana mechuberes va'omedes im haisa zekufa o muta al tzida mutalin tosa liyeshiva regla v'afakav dehashta avid o shari delomidi avid el liyisuvam. Let's listen to this. First, you say to yourself, what's the problem with putting a bed down on Shabbos? So remember again, technically speaking, you could say a bed is an ohel also. What is a bed in ohel 2? What is an ohel 2? The area underneath it. But since, again, the bed is made for sitting on top of it, therefore that does not really create an ohel situation. Kisei trasko, we'll say, is like a folding chair. It's like a folding chair, right? So you would fold it up, you'd unfold it. So because essentially all it's missing is an act of unfolding, not really an act of building or creation, therefore it's permitted to fold it and unfold it on Shabbos. Asla, Rabbi say, interestingly enough, is like it's like a foldable toilet. So what they would do is they would have like a chair, a seat, and essentially, again, the way they would create a toilet was they'd cut out the fabric in the middle. So I guess you'd put like a bedpan or something underneath that. That would be your toilet. So you're permitted to go ahead, fold it, unfold it. So we'll say this is actually quite fascinating, and this actually has dramatic halacha l'maaseh ramifications for anyone with young children. Because one of the interesting shilas that comes up regarding Hilchos Shabbos young children is the opening of carriage canopies on Shabbos. Can you close and open carriage canopies on Shabbos? So both again, b'pashtos, that sounds like a paradigmatic case of an ohel arai, right? They're going ahead and I'm closing. So both I just want to point out, we're actually going to see some of this halacha today, but interestingly enough, you see a school of thought that says anything that's just like is open closed like that, like easily open closed, the opening of that is not tantamount to the creation of an ohel arai. Since it's omed to be open, since it's supposed to be opened, therefore, again, by definition, there's no real halachic problem of opening and closing. We'll see that a little bit more in just a bit. They know the tluya b'Shabbos. So remember again, the Chachamim said that even if the strainer was already what's the right word, positioned before Shabbos, you still can't pour wine into it on Shabbos. So what's the pshat? So the Gemara says, shimer mai. So what happens if you poured wine into the strainer? Shimer, right? So you poured wine. What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Rav Kana, shimer chayiv chatos. Rav Kana says, Isser daraisa. You chayiv chatos. Fine. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Maskif Rav Sheshes. 1 second. Mi ika midi dirabanon mechayiv chatos. Rabbi Eliezer Shari Lechatchila, and I will say, now if that's true, that the Rabbanon actually say that the act of pouring wine into the strainer is in fact an Isser D'Oraisa, then I will say, understand the incredible gap on the opinions. The Chacham are going to say that it's an Isser D'Oraisa, and Rabbi Eliezer is seemingly saying what? That it's Mutar Lechatchila. Do we ever have a machlokes like that? Where one opinion says Isser D'Oraisa, and the second opinion says mutar lechatchila? We don't normally find that. After all, the Gemara says the maskifla Rav Yosef alamalo. Why not? We do find that elsewhere. Hare ir shel zav. We'll say, remember again, the ir shel zav. We will say the ir shel zav was a tachshet. We learned about this earlier in Shabbos. Was a beautiful golden like tiara that the women used to wear, that almost looked like the skyline of Yerushalayim. We'll say how beautiful to learn this on Rosh Chodesh Menachem Av, right? The Ir Shel Zav. So ultimately, again, so this was this tachshit, this beautiful ornaments. What about the Ir Shel Zav? So let's remember again, so the shaila was, can a woman wear out her Ir Shel Zav on Shabbos or not? The Rabbi Meir Mechayiv Chatos. Rabbi Meir says that you're Chayiv Chatos if you wear it, i.e. it's in Isdaraisa. Rabbi Eliezer Shari Lechatchila, and Rabbi Eliezer says that it's more to Lechatchila. So Rabbi say, so again, Maihi. So we'll say, what exactly is this case? Tisanya. Lo say Isha Be'ir Shal Zav, V'myatza Chayev Es Chadas Rabbi Meir. A woman should not wear out her golden tiara of Yerushalayim on Shabbos, and if she did so, she's Chayev Chatos. These words Rabbi Meir. The Chum say, Lo say true, she should not go out. V'myatza Petura. But if she goes out, she's totally pater. So we'll say, so remember again, so that's fine. Petura means what? Part of Asr, which is an Isser D'Rabbanan. So you have again Rabbi Eliezer. We have Rabbi Meir saying it's an Isser D'Oraisa. We have the Chum saying it's an Isser D'Rabbanan. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yotzi Isha Be'ir Shal Zav Lechatchila. And Rabbi Eliezer says no, a woman could wear her Ir Shal Zav out even Lechatchila. So we'll say it's pretty dramatic. So you have over. So the Gemara says, I'm going to buy you 1 second. Mi Savis Rabbi Eliezer Ad Rabbi Meir Kai Damer Chayev Eschatos. Adrabanan kaida amri patra aval aser va'amar lehu ihu mutar lechatchila. To which the Gemara says, no. Rabbi Eliezer is not commenting on Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Eliezer is commenting on the Chachamim. So you both say the way this machlokes plays out is as follows: is that Rabbi Meir says to wear out the Ir Shal Zav is an Isser D'Oraisa. Chachamim say it's an Isser D'Rabbanan. Rabbi Eliezer says mutar lechatchila. When Rabbi Eliezer says mutar lechatchila, that's because in his understanding of the machlokes, the most chamer shita is who? is the Chachamim and not Rabbi Meir. So the Chachamim are saying that it's Asr Midrabanan, and Rabbi Meir is coming along, Rabbi Eliezer is coming along and saying it's Mutter Lechatchila. But Rabbi Eliezer is not really dialoguing here at all with Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that it's an Isser D'Oraisa, to which the Gemara says, Mishum Mai Masrinan Bey. So I'll say this is very interesting. So now, okay, so what we've established is, let's say at least according to one opinion, according to Rav Kahana's understanding, halacha l'maisa, the act of going ahead and pouring wine into a strainer is an isser d'oraisa, b'chai v'chatos. Okay, which malacha are you violating? What is it exactly that you have done wrong? So the Gemara says, Rabba ar mishum borer. Rabba says it's borer. It's borer. Remember again, borer means the act of going in and separating ochel from psoles, or psoles from ochel. Right? You go ahead and separate the good from the bad. That's what you're doing over here. Rabbi Zera or Mishum Merakid. Rabbi Zera says it's sifting. It's sifting. I both say now again. Interestingly enough, borer and merakid are in the same family, but they're different malachas. So the shaila is, what are you chayiv for over here? Amar Rabba, kavasi didi mistabra. I think I'm right that it's really an issue of borer. Why? Ma darko shel borer nota ochel maniach psoles. Just like by borer, you take the food and you leave behind the psoles. Af hachanami notalas ochel maniachas psoles. So the Rebbe said, what are you doing over here? You're taking the wine into the barrel and you're leaving behind the dregs in the sieve. Rabbi Zera says, I think I'm right. Why? Both say in sifting, generally the psolis remains up top and the ochel falls down to the bottom. So too over here, halacha l'maisa, the psoles, which in this case is the dregs, is on top, and the ochel, the food, in this case the wine, is on the bottom. So both say halacha l'maisa, that's the machlokes. So Tani Rami Cheskel. So we'll say now we're going to talk a little bit. So machlokes exactly which malacha it is that you are violating when you go ahead and you pour the wine through the strainer. So the Gemara now goes back a little bit to some of the discussion regarding ohel arai, the creation of a temporary structure on Shabbos. Turn Rabbi Cheskel, talis kfula lo yaseh. Both say you shouldn't make a talis kfula. Now, interesting, what's a talis kfula? So we'll say, so this is essentially you have 4 poles and you put a piece of fabric on top. A makeshift tent that doesn't really cover the sides as much, right? But Lamaisa, the goal is a canopy on top. So the Gemara says, shouldn't make a talis kfula. Vim asa, but if you did so, patra aval asar. If you did so, it's asar midrabanan. Both say, why is it asar midrabanan? Because Lamaisa, again, it is an ohel arai. Remember again, the only time it can be chayiv midaraisa is if you're making a real structure on Shabbos. If what it is that you're making is temporary, it's an Isser D'Rabbanan. So you put up a canopy. You put up a canopy on Shabbos. Halacha l'maisa, again, that is an Isser Midrabanan. Haya karuch aleh chut o meshicha. But this is very interesting. However, if let's say before Shabbos, you put on one of the poles, right? You put on one of the poles, let's say a string or a piece of the fabric. I both say, so imagine the following idea. You have 4 poles. Normally during the week, you'd put like a cloak on top of it in order to go in and serve as a roof. So imagine on Erev Shabbos, you attach part of the cloak, but you attach it in a way that all you really need to do is pull on some of it, and the entire roof spreads out. So the Gemara says, mutter l'tosa l'chatchila. Then it is mutter to go ahead and pull on the rest of that roof on Shabbos l'chatchila. So both say this is very interesting. What this says essentially is that even the problem of ohel arai, of creating a temporary structure, is only when you're starting from scratch, when you're starting from nothing. But if l'maisa, part of the process has already been done on Erev Shabbos, so you attached that talis, that cloak in some way, and some piece of fabric is there, so all you need to do is really pull down, and the rest of the tent top spreads out, that's going to be mutul lechatchila on Shabbos. Quite interesting. What about a canopy? Both in this context, the canopy usually means like a bed canopy. So what's the status of a canopy? Amarle afmita asura. Even in the Bryce is going to read a little bit strange, so we'll read it and then we'll explain it. Even a bed is asur. Mita mahu. What's the status? What's the halacha with the bed? Amarle af kila muteres. Even a canopy is muter. So the Gemara says kilo mita mahu. What about a bed and a canopy? Amarle kila asura mita muteres. The kilo of the canopy is asur. but the bed is mutter. So we'll say, what's happening over here? Velo kasha, hadika amar af mita surah, kide karmanoi. So we'll say, when we say that the mita is asra, that's like a karmanoi mita. We'll say, what's that? Look at Rashi, kide karmanoi. Hainu galilasa, sheparko machzira vahu shem makom. So we'll say, this is the type of bed that was made up of different pieces. That halacha lamaisa, you construct and deconstruct. So if you construct and deconstruct it, then halacha lemaisa, that's the problem of building it on Shabbos. And when we say that a canopy is mutter, kidrei bar Yecheskel, like Rami bar Yecheskel. We'll say, what does that mean? Rashi says, karach aleh chut. We'll say that's the case. When is putting up the canopy mutter? When you attached part of the canopy already on Erev Shabbos, all you need to do is pull on a piece of fabric and the rest of the canopy unfolds. Kila asura umita mutares, kididan. We'll say the case of the forbidden canopy, but the permitted bed, that's like ours. We'll say, now what does that mean? So remember again, a bed, as we spoke about before, if the bed is a complete unit, so we'll say, so what they're imagining over here is, imagine your bed is standing up against the wall. You want to put it down because you want to go to sleep. But if you do that, aren't you creating an ohel? Because at the end of the day, aren't you now creating an ohel for the space underneath the bed? No, but since the bed's not used that way, right? The bed is used for the area on top of it. Halach lamaisa, putting the bed straight down is not a problem of ohel. And I will say the kila, the canopy that they're saying is usher. We're going to see that there are different types of canopies. Some canopies came like to a, to a point on the top. We'll say if you come to a point on the top, that is not problematic. Canopy is only going to be problematic when there is at least a tafach, a flat space on top. The definition of an ohel, the definition of a roof, of a structure, is not simply a covering, but rather it is a covering that has at least one tefach of flat space. We're going to see that in just a moment. So the Gemara says as follows: Rav Yosef, Chazina luhu lekili debei Rav Huna. I used to see the canopies of the house of Rav Huna. Deme'arta nagidu u'mitzafra chavita ramya. In the evening they were spread out, and by morning already they were folded up. If you look at Rashi, Deme'arta nagidu mitzafra chavita beleli Shabbos reisim prusos. So we'll say the idea is obviously they're permitted to go ahead and put up and take down because I saw them up on Friday night and down on Shabbos morning. A curtain. We'll say vilon in this context is a curtain. Rashi says, it's like a curtain that serves as a doorway. So you could put up a curtain, you could take down a curtain. Because we'll say again, there's no issue of an ohel unless, of course, there's a roof. Right? The definition of an ohel, really for Shabbos purposes, is halach lamaisa rooftop. So a curtain, as much as it's a doorway, there's no problem putting it up and taking it down on Shabbos. So va'amr shmo mishon Rabbi Chia amud beis. Kilas chasanim mutal intosa umutal lefarka. Similarly, again, I'll say a bridal canopy. A bridal canopy, you could put it up and you could take it down. I'll say now why? What's the logic over here? A bridal canopy was obviously over a bed, but Lamaisa there was no tefach, a flat space on top of it. It came to a point. It just came to a point on top. So we'll say when you have something that comes to a point on top, halacha Lamaisa, that is not a problem of ohel. Therefore, again, you could put it up, you could take it down on Shabbos. Amar of Sheshes Beit Ravidi, lo amar elashein bagahir, lo amar elashein bagaga tefach. That's when can you put up and take down the bridal canopy? Only if the rooftop did not have a tefach of flat space. Aval yesh begago tefach. But if there is a tefach of flat space on top, asura. Ultimately, again, you cannot go ahead and put it up and take it down. V'chi ein begago tefach nami lo amran ela she'ein bepachos mishlosha samuch legago tefach. I will say not only that. I will say if there is a tefach of flat space within 3 tefachim of the top of the roof, that's also problematic. So both say this is actually very interesting. So it gets a little bit technical for just a moment. The definition of an ohel is something that has at least a tefach of flat space on top. What the Gemara is saying is that even if it has a tefach of flat space within 3 tefachim, i.e. lavud, to the top, that also makes it problematic. If within 3 tefachim of the top there is a tefach, a flat space, that also makes it into a bona fide ohel, problem to put it up and take it down on Shabbos. Both say this also only if the slope doesn't have a tefach. Aval yesh b'shipur tefach, shipur olim ka'olim damu. The slope of the tefach could also go ahead and count as part of the roof line. So the Gemara says, "V'lo amrun ela d'lo nachas mipuria tefach, aval nachas mipuria tefach aser." Look at Rashi just a moment. Aval nachsa mipuria tefach. Rashi says, "Ha'u tefach havakir la'ohel v'amita na'asis lo gag." So we'll say this is also assuming, in let's say a case of a bed, where halacha l'maisa again, that let's say the sides of the tent can't extend below the bed. If they extend below the bed a tefach, then effectively what happens? So the area underneath the bed is enclosed as well. The top of the bed then becomes the roof, and you've effectively created an ohel. Okay, I would just say for our purposes, the most important thing to remember in all of this is that tefach of space on top. So first of all, anything that comes to a point. So if technically speaking, if you were to put up a tent on Shabbos, assuming that it's not like a real tent that comes to a point at the top, technically speaking, that would not be Asr on Shabbos. It's quite possible that it's not even Asr Midirabbanon. Now, again, it probably would fall under the category of Uvda Dechol, weekday activity, so you would not do it. But at least all it's not a problem. The only problem with an all is when you have a tefach of flat space. So I'll say, so just for a moment with this, the baby carriages, this is why the conventional wisdom with baby carriages is as follows. There's a machlokas aposkim, if opening up, I don't know what you call, you know what I'm talking about, right? What is it? Sunshade. Thank you. Right. So opening up the sunshade, Abba says, "Machlokas haposkim, is that a problem of creating ohel arai or not?" It's a big machlokas haposkim. Now you know what it is. Some say yes, you're creating a temporary roof. Others say that this is like the folding chair of the Gemara. It's all made to be opened and closed, so the Chazal clearly treat that something that's open. So let's say conventional wisdom is a very simple fix. What's the simple fix? Leave it open before Shabbos, at least the tefach. As long as it's open before Shabbos, already at least the tefach, then by definition, the oil has already been created. Once the oil has been created, so opening it more or opening it less doesn't make any difference. Once the oil is there, the oil is there. So conventional wisdom is halacha l'maisa, go ahead and keep it open at tefach, and that's where you're good to go for Shabbos. If you didn't, and let's say again it's very sunny, the baby's uncomfortable, you're nervous. So again, definitely yeshami lismoch to open it up. But lemaisa, if you could open it up a tefach before Shabbos, certainly better. So the Gemara goes right. V'amrav sheishes, Bered Rav Idi, Hai Siana Shari. So we'll say this Siana. We'll say what's a Siana? It's very interesting. Siana, Rashi says, is kova shalavad. It's a felt hat. This is interesting, right? There's a felt. You could wear your felt hat on Shabbos. So the Gemara says, Va'it Marciana Aser, but we learned that the felt hat is Aser. Lokasha, Hade Ispe Tefach, Hade Lespe Tefach. I will say everything depends on how big the brim is. If the brim has a Tefach, then apparently it's Aser because of Ohel Arai. Incredible, right? It's Aser because of Ohel Arai. If it's less than a Tefach, it's not Aser because of Ohel Arai. So we'll say, so this is Mamish Araya. It's interesting how styles change. Right now, today is the small brim hat. People look like yodelers, when they walk around. But again, it's a different discussion. So I'll say, so apparently, halacha l'maisa Chazal didn't like the large brim hat because they pose a problem. They pose a problem als ohel. So Gemara says, really? So we'll say, 1 second. But then, what about the following case? Let's say I have a cloak, and I pull my cloak over my head, and I pull it out an additional tefach. So that's also a problem of oil arai. So I'll say, so in other words, the Gemara is a little bit strange is, you tell me that an article of clothing could actually become an ohel arai. The Gemara says, Elo lo kasha. The Gemara says, you're right. It actually has nothing to do with ohel. Nothing with ohel. What's the concern? The concern about wearing these larger hats is that they may blow off, and therefore you may come to carry it, which makes sense. We'll say with a very large brim, so obviously, again, the wind could catch that and take it off. So the Gemara says, if the hat is firmly set on the head, then einachinami, the Gemara says that you can wear that on Shabbos. If it's not as firmly set on the head, then it ultimately, again, could be problematic. Emalan easy. Hanach milimal yus the Amritlan Mishmei Rav Tarti B'Shabbos Chad B'Torah. So now listen to this Gemara. So Rabbi Cheskel sent Rav Huna. Rav Huna, our friend, tell us something beautiful that you learned in the name of Rav. And we heard that you learned 2 things regarding Shabbos and 1 thing regarding Torah in general. Here we go. Shalach lei. Shalach lei hadisanyo. Good bikisna mutul and tosa b'Shabbos. We'll say good. Remember, good. This goes back to Amud Aleph. Good is that wine skin. So remember again, this was this very large leather pouch that they used to carry wine. Now the chap over here is as follows. At night, remember when they would camp, is they would stretch out the wineskin. They'd have pegs, and they would suspend the wineskin on pegs. They did that so that the air should be able to circulate through, and the wine should not go bad. So the Gemara says, you could put up your good, you could put up your wineskin on the pegs on Shabbos. Amar Rav, and Rav explained, Lo shanu ela bebeis bnei adam. That's only true if two people are putting up the wineskin together. Aval ba'adam echad aser. But if one person is doing this aser, what's the logic? So apparently the concern was as follows. If one person is putting up the wineskin, it's going to end up being very taut. And because you have to do one side and then go to the other side afterwards. Because of that, there's a problem that it looks like you're making ohel arai. If it's two people and they do it together, it's not going to be as taut, and therefore not a problem of ohel arai. Good. Amar Abayi, v'kila afilu beis bnei adam aser. When putting up a canopy, Abayi said, even if two people are doing it, it's going to be problematic. Why? Because it is impossible that ultimately, again, they're going to go ahead and stretch it out a little bit. So what I said, the concern over here is, if these items get too taut, then lamais, again, then they really have the appearance of the creation of an ohel arai. Idach mahi, what's the other halacha? Desanyo, kira shenishmata achas miyakosea motla taltala. Let's say if you have an oven or a stove, and one of the legs of the stove or the oven came off, you can still carry it on Shabbos. Because I must say, an oven or a stove with one leg is still going to be usable on Shabbos. Shtayim, however, if two legs come off, aser. Ultimately, again, it's going to be aser. Because I must say, once two legs come off, it is no longer considered to be a utensil. Rav Amar afilu chad nami aser. Rav says, no, even if one leg comes off, you really shouldn't carry it on Shabbos. Why? Gezerah shema yitaka. Because I will say the concern is going to be that what? That perhaps you will go ahead and come to affix it tightly. In other words, I will say the concern over here is that if one leg comes off, you'll come to go ahead and really push the leg back in very tightly. And the issue over here is bona, binyan. It could be either binyan or makib patish, depending on which opinion. So we'll say, so those are the two halachas that he brought down by Shabbos. The Gemara says Torah. What interesting halacha did you teach by Torah? And I'll say we're going to actually get into now some incredible, beautiful, magnificent, overwhelmingly amazing agarata. It's going to start today, and Emirat Hashem is going to go into tomorrow as well. So we'll get through as much as we can today. So the Gemara says as follows: Torah, Damarav. We'll see. Listen to this. Asida Torah. First wide line. Kof Lamed Ches Amud Beis. Asida Torah shetishtachach me Yisrael. So Torah, unfortunately, is going to be forgotten from Klal Yisrael. We'll say this is speaking about in the future. Now, generally, the understanding of this Gemara is, this is a reference to the pre-Messianic era. In the pre-Messianic era, Torah is going to be forgotten from Klal Yisrael. Shnei Amar, v'hifla Hashem es makoscha. So we'll say, because the pasuk says, Hashem will be mafla, will be mafla your afflictions, makoscha. Hafla zu, en yodea ma'u. I don't know what hafla means. Kishu omer, lochin hineni Yosef lahafli es ha'amazeh hafle vafela, have omer hafla zu Torah. Now, the Gemara quotes the pasuk from Yeshayahu. And again, the pasuk says, "I will go ahead, lachi hineni Yosef lahafli es ha'amazeh hafle vafela." I will intensify ultimately again hafle vafela. Now, the end of that pasuk is va'avda chachmas chachamav, and the wisdom of the wise will be lost. So it must be that hafla refers to Torah wisdom, and therefore again, when the pasuk says v'hifla Hashem es makoscha, means Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to intensify your suffering by not only having physical suffering but also forgetting Torah. So we'll say, says the Gemara, incredible. When the rabbis entered into the vineyard in Yavne, we'll remember again, Yavne is where the Sanhedrin relocated to before the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. They said, Torah will be forgotten from Klal Yisrael in the future, in the pre-Messianic era. As the pasuk says in Amos, days are coming, Hashem says, and I will send a famine in the land. It will not be a famine. People will not be hungry for bread. They will not be thirsty for water, but they will desire to hear the word of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ksiv, V'na'u mayim ad yam umitzafon va'ad mizrach yishotet levakesh es devar Hashem v'lo yimtzo. And furthermore, the pasuk says, people will seek out the word of Hashem, and they will not be able to find it, which tells us something amazing, that there's going to be some type of dynamic in the pre-Messianic era where Torah will mamish be forgotten. So Devar Hashem, what does it mean Devar Hashem? Zu halacha, Devar Hashem, Zahakate, so that refers to halacha, it refers to Kate, so both say the Kate refers to Messianic calculations, Devar Hashem, Zu Nevuah, so Nevuah is not going to be here, to be able the ability to forecast Messianic revelation won't be here, halacha won't be here, Umay yishotet lavakesh as devar Hashem. And what does it mean again? That literally they will both say yishotet means like they will search. Yeah, they will search to find the devar Hashem. So the Gemara says, listen to this. So Amru asida isha shetitel kikar shel truma. Because we'll say the following scenario will play out in the future. A woman will take a loaf of bread of truma that was cooked in an oven which was tamei. V'tachser bebate knesos ubate midrashos. Leida im tamehi v'im tahorehi. And she will take the loaf of bread to the base medrash, to the shuls, and she'll ask a simple shayla: is the bread tamei or not? We'll say, so presumably we're talking about over here a loaf of truma which was baked in a tamei oven, ve'ein mevin, and yet there will be no one who could answer her question. So the Gemara says, im tahorehi im tamehi. What? They can't answer a question if it's tar or tamei. Behedjuk sivbei. Both say, is that not an obvious, meaning you cook a loaf of bread, you bake a loaf of bread in a tamei oven, is that not obvious that the loaf is tamei? Ksivbei, mikala ochel asher yachel, ela leida im rishonahi, ve'im shniyahi, ve'ein mevin. To which the Gemara says, no. The question she'll be asking is the loaf a rishon, is the loaf a sheni, and no one will be able to answer that for her. To which the Gemara says, we'll say, well, you know what we'll do is we'll stop over here for today. So I don't mean to leave you on the cliffhanger. I will say, but what I do want to tell you is that there's some incredibly beautiful and magnificent Gemara tomorrow as well. We'll say to everyone joining us here this morning, it's a great zchus to welcome so many of you back to share this morning. For those with us on Zoom, it is a great zchus that Baruch Hashem we're able to learn online together. I can't see anyone who's on YouTube, but I'm assuming there are people on YouTube as well. But see, it's mamish like, I feel like this is giving us a little bit of a feeling of like kibbutz galius. We've got some learning here, we've got some learning there, we've got people learning everywhere. And halavai, one day the gula will come, and Emir Hashem will all be able to learn together in one makom.